Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jessica Fernandez and I'm representing my final exam in Special Penal Law. Republic Act Number 9165, Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2002. What is the chain custody requirement in drug offense? Chain custody is defined as the duly recorded offense as duly recorded authorized movements and custody of seized drugs at each stage from the time of the seizures of confiscations, the receipts in the forensic laboratory, the safekeeping and the presentations in court for destruction. Each link in the chain must be properly established by the prosecution. The first link is the seizures and marking. The second one is the turnover of the illegal drugs. Apprehending officer to the investigating officer. The third one is the turnover by the investigating officer to the forensic chemist for laboratory examination. And fourth is the turnover in the submissions of the marked illegal drugs seized by the forensic chemist to the court. What is its rationale? For Dangerous Drugs Acts under Republic Act 9165 as amended by R 810640 provides that the so-called chain of custody rule, a rule which is meant to maintain the integrity of evidence in drug cases and make the case foolproof against adulterations or planting of evidence. What is the effect of failure to observe the requirement? In People of the Philippines Plaintiff Appellate versus Jose Rasos Jr. Padolo, in the ruling of the court finds accused that Mr. Jose Rasos guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the offense of the violations of Section 5 RA 9165 and hereby imposes him to the penalty to pay fine and life imprisonment. For Republic Act Number 3019 or Anti-Graft Act and Graft Practices Act, Section 3B and Act Number 3815 of the Revised Penal Code, both charges can be simultaneously a comparison of the elements of the crime, direct bribery under Article 21010 of the Revised Penal Code, and those of the violations of Section 3 of RA 3019 shows that there is neither identity nor necessary inclusion between two offenses. There are elements of the crime penalized by the under Section 3B of RA 3019. The offender is a public officer who requests to receive a gift percent share presentation benefit. He made a request of receipt was made in the connections with the contract or transactions with the government. He has the right to intervene in official capacity under the law. And connections with a contract or transactions has the right to intervene. There are five direct libraries the following essential elements under Article 210 of the RPC. Number one, that the accused is a public officer. Number two, that he received directly of through another some gift, present, or offer or promise. Number three, that such gift, present, offer, or promise has been given in consideration of his commission of some crime or any act not consisting a crime or to refrain from doing something which is its official duty to do. Number four, that the crime or act relates to the exercise of his functions as a public officer, and there are three modes of commissions of direct bribery which is the basis of the penalty to be imposed. For example, if the officer performed the act of regularly, properly, or in accordance with the law, he is not liable even if already received the considerations. If the act was done improperly without any consideration, the officer is not liable for bribery, but he may be administratively liable under the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. If the officer received the consideration but he did not do act as agreed upon, he may be sued for the recovery of the considerations for staff by means of deceit. For what is malversations of public funds and property? Article 217, Malversations of public funds or property, presumptions of malversations or any public officer who, by person or the duties of his offices, is accountable for public funds or property shall be appropriate of the same shall take misappropriate, shall consent or through abandonment or negligence shall permit any other person to take such public funds or property fully or partially otherwise guilty or misappropriations or malversation such funds or property shall suffer. For the case of Oscar Parunga versus Sandigan Bayan and technical malversations, the public officer applies the public funds under the administration not for his wants and other personal use, but to the public use of that for which the fund was appropriated by law or ordinance. That the technical malversation is therefore not included and must not necessarily include crime for malversations of a public funds charged in the information, since the acts of constituting the crime of technical malversations were not alleged in the information, and since technical malversation does not include or does not in the crime for public funds, he cannot reluctantly or convicted of technical malversation. For Republic Act 9160 for Section 2, Declarations of Policy, it is hereby declared that the policy of the state to protect and preserve the integrity, confidentiality of bank accounts and to ensure that the Philippines shall not be used as a money laundering site, the pursuits of unlawful activity, consistent with its foreign policy. The state shall extend sa cooperations in transnational investigation, prosecutions of persons involved in money laundering activities wherever committed. What crime did Pedro commit? Under Article 214, malversations of public funds or property. Presumptions of malversations. Any public officer who, by reasons of the duties of his office, is accountable for public funds or property, shall appropriate the same or shall take misappropriate or shall consent to abandonment or negligence, shall permit any other to take such public funds or property, fully or partially, or shall otherwise be guilty of the misappropriations or malversations of such funds or property. Is Rodolfo liable for for as an accessory for violations of anti-fencing law? Rodolfo is not liable for violations of anti-fencing law, as this law refers to the buy and sales of articles of value which proceeds of robbery and theft. Instead, Rodolfo is liable as an accessory of the crime of malversation as he purchased a typewriter for 2,000 each, only he knew it could be easily sold for 6,000 to 10,000. Therefore, he profited or assisted the principal to profit from the effects proceeds of the commissions of the crime. A was caught peeping through a small hole in the bathroom door while a young 16-year-old lady was taking a bath. What a law is A liable for? He is liable for the violations of RA 9262, violence against women and their children. Violence against women and their children refers to any act of series of acts committed by any person against woman, his wife, former wife, or against woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship with whom he has a common child, or against her child whether legitimate or irregularly or without a family abode, which results or in its likely to result the physical, sexual assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. But it is not limited to the following acts. Children refers to those aged 18 years old or older but are incapable of taking care of themselves, defined under the Republic Act number 7610. As used in this act, it includes the biological children of the victim and other children under the care. What crime may be retired? Colonel may be charged with its past. The retired colonel may be charged with a child abuse, the violations of Republic Act 7610, a law providing special protections against child abuse, exploitation, and discriminations. One of the acts of the child abuse or exploitation penalized under Article 6 of RA 7610 is the keeping of the company of the minor who is 10 years old or younger than the offender in a hotel, motel, warehouse, disco, joint pension, considering that uh, considering that Agathon is a retired pursuant to compulsory retirement while the child will keep company within a private room and the which result is only 14 years old. There must be an age difference more than 10 years between. What possible defenses can he interposes? That the child is related to him by affinity, consanguinity within the fourth degree or beyond by recognized in law or local custom and traditions, or that he was only acting in pursuance of moral, social or legal duty of RA 9262. For the question number 8, Braulio invited Lulu's 11-year-old stepdaughter inside the master bedroom. He pulled out a knife and threatened her with harm unless she submitted to his desire. He was touching her chest and the sex organ when his wife caught him in the act. The prosecutor is unsure whether to charge Braulio for acts of lasciviousness under Article 226 of the RPC of Lasciviousness Conduct RA 7610 Special Protections Against Child Abuse, Exploitations, Discriminations Act of Rape under Article 266A of the RPC. What is the crime committed? The acts of the Braulio of touching and sex organ acts of lasciviousness and not attempted rape because it intends to have sexual intercourse. The same acts of touching the chest and sex organ of Lulu under psychological coercion influences her stepfather Braulio to constitute sexual abuse under Section 5. For number 9, Matt found guilty of drug trafficking while his younger brother Jeff was found guilty of possession of equipment, instrument apparatus, and other paraphernalia for dangerous drugs act under Section 12 Republic of Number 9165. For Section 24 of RA 9165, Apprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002, the brothers' petitions for probation should be both denied. Matt's petitions for probation should be denied because he was convicted for drug trafficking since 24 RA 9165 Comprehensive Dangerous Act. Regardless of the penalty imposed by the court cannot avail of the privilege granted by the Probation's Law or Presidential Decree Number 968 as amended. On the other hand, Jeff's application for probation cannot also be entertained or granted because he has already appealed his convictions by the trial court.